Hey everyone, it's time for another edition of Beaver Banter.
Beaver Sports Talk lives here.
Beaver Banter is back once again for another week, presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. I'm CJ Baumgartner. Ian Rivers over there. Another great week to be a Beaver. Lots of things to talk about in this episode, Ian. First of all, how are you feeling now that your Chargers are 1-0? That's the thing we got to lead the show off with.
Called it. I called it at the end of last podcast. Nobody believed me, man. Nobody had faith. But no, that was awesome. That was it's sad, right? Because I mean, I think they're now 4-18 against the Chiefs since Andy Reid took over. So it sucks because you don't want that to be the case. But I mean, since it is the case, a win like that just feels great. You know,
we got the
awesome. Chargers
reference out of the way, but the Chargers had to play in Brazil, and that feels like a long way to go. Wouldn't they just be able to play? They should just play a game with the Chet. I feel like if you're going to do that, if you're going to go all the way somewhere, just do it in a spot where at least there's American football fans in a way, because it's the opening week. You know what I mean? This is our sport. I feel like we should. It's like opening the college football season in Ireland. Maybe that's where I should have the bone to pick. Don't open it. Make Kansas State and Iowa State play at the Chet.
I mean, that's
a lot better on the travel budget.
The thing that kind of bugged me about it. Now, I get it. It's the Chargers. Their home fan base is not the greatest, but they had to give up a home divisional game to go and play in Brazil against a division rival. I think that's ridiculous. Again, it's the Chargers. They have not beaten the Chiefs at home since 2013. So every win they've had lately has been in Arrowhead anyways. So it's not like they had a huge home field advantage, but it still is a little frustrating. They had to not only play 4 preseason games, but then they immediately had to hop on a plane and go to Sao Paulo. But either way, they got the win, and that's awesome. And the Vikings also got the win last night, CJ, after a pretty rough opening 2 quarters and then a little change. It really turned around.
Yeah, the good news is just play the Chicago Bears every single time. That's the Bears are going to bear, man. That's going to be the ticket. But to talk more about the Beavers, the reason I bring up the Chet is because, Ian, things are going to look a little bit different this year at Chet Anderson Stadium. If you go to the Beaver Banter Facebook page, we have a little more information about this. This is from the Bemidji State University Athletics Facebook page themselves. They say big changes are coming to the Cheddar Dome, which I've never heard it referenced like that, but I will add it into the lexicon because it is very good. So good job, SID office.
All right, the Cheddar Dome. That's interesting. I didn't know that there was a dome over it, but
hey, you know what? That's okay. It's the dome is our hearts and minds. The dome is the winds created by the lake.
Yes, the dome is the friends we made along the way.
The dome is the thwapping of the beaver tails you hear from every high school senior, junior that's on their college trip and is on that little mound in front of Tam and just.
Oh yeah,
that's where the dome is, just that circular.
That's the dome.
Rock, that people stand on. That's what they mean by dome. So the Cheddar Dome. Anyway, what's coming up at the Cheddar Dome? Well, turns out there's a whole bunch of things coming up for the football home opener against Sioux Falls on Saturday. First off, there is a Keg and Cork and Burnix East end zone, $11 ticket add-on. Why the big deal? Why do you need an $11 ticket add-on? Well, if you do, you can get to a section where you can enjoy the Beavs and also enjoy one of your favorite adult beverages. Alcohol sales are being provided by Keg and Cork and Burnix. Tickets available on site. You got to be 21 with an ID, obviously. And some new things come to Diamond Point Tailgate this year, which is food trucks. There's games. There's a whole bunch of different things that'll be there. There's live music at the tailgate. A lot of great stuff happening with that. It's really exciting. I don't know if that. I think that might just be for the home opener, like some of the music and some of all that other stuff. But honestly, for everything else, make it an event. Bemidji State football has become one of the hottest tickets, and as cool as it can be, and try and get people out there to chat and have a great time. And I mean, all of these different things that are coming in are just a really cool addition, I think, to the atmosphere that Bemidji State is trying to build at Chet Anderson Stadium.
100%. It's a very unique opportunity and something you wouldn't expect to see just because of the, laws or rules or whatever they are about, Minnesota State campuses being dry campuses. And this is, I don't know what kind of workaround they've got where this is technically going to be allowed, but it is a unique opportunity. Take advantage of it, man. That's super fun, especially on those cold days, because we know there's going to be some coming up here. This weekend looks like it might be nice temperature-wise, but yeah. But either way, it's going to get chilly eventually, so you can definitely enjoy some of those beverages, like CJ was saying, on some of those chilly Saturdays watching some Beaver football.
Yeah, tickets and concessions. They have the pricing here. General admission $15. Senior GA $11, youth GA $7, reserved chairs, which are those great, you get the seat, you get the backrest and things like that. Those are $19. You can also bring an unopened factory sealed bottle of water into the stadium. Now you got to open the cap, obviously, but you get to bring in your own water too, which is cool if you're trying to, go and it's a hot day or it's a cold day, whatever, you can try and bring that in. They want you in the door. They want you to go to Chet Anderson Stadium and enjoy it. And I think it's a great idea to try and encourage people to show up and go to these games. If I was able to be just a little bit closer, if I didn't have a commitment every single Saturday, I would go to almost every home game. I'm hoping to make it to at least one home game this year. But honestly, this stuff is great where if you're in the area, it's a great way to just enjoy a Saturday.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit further away than even you are. It stinks that St. Cloud State, in a way, doesn't still have a program, because I'm sure every other year they would be playing down in St. Cloud, and it would be very easy and except game in St. Paul against Concordia. I really don't have a very close option other than, I think, Mankato is the closest other than CSP down there at this point. So, yeah, it's always fun. I got up for a game last year. It was awesome. They kind of handled SMSU pretty handily, but it's always fun getting up to Beaver games. We'll see if I make it up for one this year. I hope to, maybe towards the tail end of the season against Jamestown or Mary or something like that.
Yeah, and speaking of the football team on the field, it's been a rough couple weeks to start the season. We're going to talk about what went on in those games, some of the things that were frustrating, but also some of the reasons why. Ian and I are going to talk you off the ledge a little bit, or at least I will. Maybe Ian's already jumped off. I don't know. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about why we don't need to panic and some other things just to keep the faith in Beaver football here. Along with what we feel like, to give a big shout out to the sponsors of the Beaver Banter podcast, and that's the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation.
Yes, we do, CJ. Do you want to be a part of the team behind the teams at Bemidji State? Join hundreds of dedicated fans when you donate to Beaver Athletics and help BSU pursue its next championship. Your gift can power your program, establish a scholarship for a student athlete you get to meet, and so much more. Every dollar brings the Beavers close success at Bemidji State. So don't wait. Give today at bsualumni.org/Beavers. That's bsualumni.org/BEAVERS.
All right. So football now is 0-2 to start the year, and the games have been a little frustrating for a couple of different reasons. One of which you just kind of have a game one where it feels like the offense kind of stalls out in the first half, and that's kind of more of the same. Where the offense looks like it gets into some rhythm early, the defense not only gets stops but gets some turnovers, and it feels like Bemidji State is in position to put them away early. Bemidji State was up 14-0 on Winona State. They get a fumble. Looks like they get the ball back, and I know they eventually do kick a field goal at some point. But there was a chance early, Ian, for Bemidji State to put Winona State away early on the road, get win number one. Hey, everything's fine. NSIC schedule, here we come. And then things kind of just didn't go the Beavers' way in the second half. And they eventually end up losing this game 21-17 down in Winona State. But first of all, Winona State's kind of become, the last couple of years, a house of horrors for Bemidji State. I know they had a loss last year where they felt like they played well enough to win the game and things slipped away from them in the second half and things like that. And kind of more the same here. If you watch the team for about the first, 28 minutes of gameplay, you would have thought like Bemidji State was going to run away with this, or even if Winona was going to come back a little bit, that like Bemidji State was going to be able to hang on. And then slowly things kind of started to unravel for Bemidji State in this game. And the Beaver offense really had a tough time in the second half. 6 first downs all second half, I believe, was a stat that the broadcast put out there. And look, Winona State's no slouch. Like, that is a good football team. They were in the tournament a couple of years ago, but Bemidji State played them. So, like, this is a good football program. This isn't like they lost to, Southwest Minnesota State, or you didn't lose to Minot or Mary or something like that. This is a good football program. They're capable of doing some good things as well. It's just one of those where you felt like when you started off with the offense, things didn't quite get going. And before, I'll let you say your piece here on the game. One interesting thing to note, Connor Carver started that game from the jump at quarterback and played the whole game under center. Zach Romack, unless I missed a snap or two, believe didn't see the field at least as much as Carver did. Carver pretty much became QB1 in this week 2 game. And just kind of talk me through, Ian, what did you see in that week 2 matchup for Bemidji State?
Well, yeah, I want to start off. I was kind of getting my stuff all set up here to talk about the game. Did we say the final score? Because last week apparently we did not say the final score of the football game.
I did 21-17.
21-17. Beavers
and lose. I will say, Bemidji State loses. And I will say, that's the nice part about watching the show on YouTube is that if you have the ticker, I know we don't have it set up right now, but I'm working on it. Yep. You have the ticker at the bottom will usually tell you the score of the game. So that's just a benefit of watching the Beaver Banter podcast on YouTube. I know we're trying to work to get it to stream live to X as well. So we're working on that. That'll be there. But yes, 21-17, the Beavers unfortunately fall to Winona State. And yeah, not their best start to the year, but Ian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the game started off really well. I mean, through the first quarter or so, I was kind of thinking, all right, like maybe this was just a fluke last week. Like everything we said was probably correct. Michigan Tech is just a better football team than we expected. I mean, they played on Friday, I believe. I saw some highlights from their game against Black Hill State or something like that. And they whooped them again. And so they're 2-0 on the year. So I'm thinking, all right, that's just a good team that we lost to on the road, tough week 1 opponent, new quarterbacks, new offensive system you're bringing in. And we got off to a 7-0 start. And I'm like, all right, it's time to calm down again. We're fine. Everything's all right here. And then, like you said, it just kind of like it was almost the opposite. They kind of reminded me a little bit of the Bears yesterday on Monday night, where they started off pretty well. 2 touchdowns, the opening 2 drives for BSU, 10 plays, 63 yards, ending in a touchdown, and then a 12-play, 66-yard drive. No,
I mean, you couldn't say any better.
And then the problem is, following that, you have 3 straight drives starting in Winona State territory. One due to a fumble, where you went 3 plays, -2 yards, started at the Winona State 43, and you ended up having to punt. The next drive, you get a punt back, and after a decent return, you end up starting in decent territory, go 8 plays for 34 yards, end up having to settle for a field goal. And then 2 drives later the next drive, you start again in Winona State territory, and you go 4 plays for 9 yards, and you turn it over on downs after not converting yet another 4th down, which has been a struggle area for the Beavers offense this year. So you get 3 points out of 3 drives starting in Winona State territory when you really have an opportunity to put the gas pedal to the floor and really start ramping this thing up. And listen, it's maybe not fair to expect that they're going to score 3 touchdowns on those 3 drives and make it 35-0. But you have to at least come away with more than 3 points from those 3 drives, especially when the offense then just stalls out the rest of the day, can't do anything to help the defense. And I think the defense played pretty well throughout the game, but it was too much for this defense, who I think, like I said, played pretty well to overcome. I'm trying to look at the time of possession stats here for these teams. But it was pretty balanced. I kind of thought, I'm wondering if BSU's early drives kind of, play into that with how successful they were on those first 2 drives. But yeah, just too little, for the BSU offense. The defense were pretty long. They had a couple of big plays, but it wasn't like there was one 75-yard touchdown or something. I believe the touchdown drives they went on were all pretty long for the Warriors. One of them was a 9-play, 67-yard drive. One of them was an 8-play, 75-yard drive, and the last one was a 10-play, 73-yard drive. So, yeah, quite a few long drives for Winona State at the end of the game. In the second half, especially. And it could have been worse. It could have been worse for the Beavers. I think that they gave up was it a touchdown at the end of the first half? Yeah, it was a touchdown at the end of the first half, and then a fumble on the kick return, and Winona State fortunately missed a field goal. So you're still up 10 at half, but it was a little bit of a comedy of errors for the Beavers, unfortunately. For whatever reason, I can't remember what they call it, but Winona State's stadium, dude, it's been a house of horrors for the last 2 seasons, just like CJ said at the beginning of the show. I don't ever want to go back there and play, because I do think the Beavers were in a good spot, and whatever it is, like dark magic or something, but it did feel like that at times. I'm not saying that it isn't happening, but it just unfortunate, very unfortunate. But at the end of the day, you got a young quarterback that led this offense. I was a bit surprised to see Carver come in and start the whole game. Especially, maybe they saw enough. I didn't get, like we said, we didn't get a chance to watch them actually play last week, so we didn't have any, knowledge on if one of them outplayed the other vastly. Maybe they just felt like Connor's, rushing threat was such a benefit that they wanted to get him out there more often. But it'll be interesting to see if they stick with him next week against Sioux Falls at home, or if they go back to Romac, or if they go back to more of a 50-50 split. But yeah, just an unfortunate day for the offense. The running attack is still doing pretty well. Carver is carrying a lot of that load at times. Jaden Washington did look pretty good in this game. But unfortunately, they just weren't able to string enough together through the air consistently. And sometimes it's all it takes, man. Not to make another Chargers reference, but, the Chiefs scored on every possession in the second half that they had. But the Chargers offense was able to help their defense out by scoring points as well, and sometimes that's the difference. It's unfortunate. The season is definitely not over. There's still 9 games to go. We talked about last week, we've seen this team start 0-2 before and make the playoffs. But the backs are kind of against the wall now. You got 2 teams coming into town from Sioux Falls in a row here that are pretty scary. It's Sioux Falls and then Augustana after that. Listen, if you're able to go 2-0 through those games, because I do think that this team is better than an 0-2 record. That is true. We'll see how it goes, but we got to take it one game at a time at this point, just like we did a couple of years ago. And you got to just keep winning games and take it from there. But CJ, why don't you kind of backtrack now after I did a little bit of a negative, not a very good game for the team, but let's start to backtrack a little bit here and talk about what we can take from this game.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. You mentioned Carver starting this game fully at quarterback, and I think overall, whether it was Romac, whether it was Carver, whoever ends up being for the rest of the season, the passing attack is a work in progress. It's something that they are still working on, right? And that's where it's frustrating. It is to have the Michigan Tech game, you were ahead at halftime, but they kind of overwhelmed. Michigan Tech ended up just proving to be the better team on that day. You had a chance to win here, and you give up the touchdown late. And you even have a chance on a drive, and you just can't come up and get it, and all that stuff. So it's, the Saturday game was much more winnable, one where you really feel like you should have had that one. But I will say this, like, I know right after the game in the Discord, there's a little bit of, and we're all victim of this a little bit, to be like, oh my gosh, like, is the Silvers, the BSU football dominant run of dominance, like, fading away? Are we bad?
We're all living in Minnesota. The sky is falling after every loss. That's how it goes.
Right, and I'm here to say, like, no, that's not true. Like Ian said, this is a good football team. They are going to win some football games. They are going to be okay. They just have had some tough opponents right out of the gate. And by the way, like Ian said, they still do through this first month of the season. But I will say, here's the thing: is be patient. Like, am I saying that this team is going to rattle off, like Ian said? Are they going to run the table and go into the tournament and do whatever? I'm not guaranteeing that. You got to take it week by week. But what I am saying is, like, I think we're putting so much pressure on, like, we have to get back to the tournament. And if we don't get back to the tournament, like, yes, that is an expectation that this program is set, and not getting there is disappointing, but it's also like a testament to how good this program has been. And I think they're allowed a little bit of patience in kind of a little bit of a reset, trying to figure things out. Not only is Carver, who started the whole game at quarterback, he's a sophomore. And not only that, it's his first time, like, being the actual passer in a Division II setting against two tough opponents. And not only that, it's a first year under a new offensive system with Coach Jordan Hine. So, like, there's just a lot of newness to this Bemidji State football offense that they are trying to figure out and that they're trying to work through. And unfortunately, there's no margin for error in a Division II college football schedule if you want to get to where Bemidji State has been the last few years. And there's just something about having veteran quarterbacks. I mean, you saw it in other settings, right? Like, you've seen it, to make an NFL comparison, you see a guy the age of J.J. McCarthy come into a game versus a guy the age of Bo Nix or Michael Penix, and they look completely different going into a game. And Bemidji State had that with Brandon Alt, who had been starting forever. And then you were able to go to that into McGath, who had been behind and had a little bit of field experience, but just been behind him. And by the time he took the reins, he was a senior. He had seen everything. He had done everything. Like, Carver just hasn't had the time to really process all of this stuff. And you can see it when he's out on the field. Like, with him on the field, you could just see he'd get the ball, and not that he didn't know where to go or nothing like that, but you could just see, like, there were times where he'd hang in there and he'd go, I'm an athlete. I need to run. I got to make a play. We're behind. And you could see it. And again, I'm not a coach. I don't have access to, like, an all 22. I can't break down film for you or anything. But I feel like there's got to be a conversation with the coaching staff, maybe, of like, hey, hang tough. Like, your reads are coming. Your guys are going to get open. Make a play when you have to. And it feels like Carver just kind of leaned on a little bit of that just because he doesn't have that experience to learn from it. So all of this to say is they're a bit of a work in progress right now. We just kind of have to hang behind it. Their rushing attack was really good. They combined for 215 rushing yards. Net, was 206. So, and 123 of that came from Connor Carver, 54 of that from Washington. Washington also got into the end zone. Antonio Brown had 12 yards rushing on 5 carries. Isaiah Tisdale, Connor Mantelli had some in there as well. So, like, there are some things to like about the rushing attack. It's just more of, you're going to need to figure out the passing attack. And Connor Carver went 14 of 26, 125 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He didn't have a bad game by any stretch, but it's trying to get a way to have both of them complement each other fully and just fully develop that passing attack into what you want to be. And I feel like that's what Bemidji State needs to figure out. Not that they need to be top 4 in the NSIC in passing every year. That's not what I'm saying. But right now they average 223 passing yards a game. That's 11th in the NSIC out of 14 teams to start off the season. When you look at the offensive efficiency rating, 0.5% efficiency clip, Minnesota Duluth's offense at a 229.6. And you look at some of the teams who played early on in Northern Michigan, Michigan Tech. I don't have the number pulled up for them because I'm looking at the conference stats here. But looking at Winona State, they had a 104.6, which is just a few rings higher. And then you look at defensive efficiency for the Beavers as well. It's sitting at about a 130, whereas Winona State was at a 157. So again, but they've been right there. And just outside of a few things, they should have won that football game. There's some penalties that got in their way. There's some other things. It's enough quarterback talking, and let's wrap up this conversation. What non-quarterback things did you notice out of this team? And while I give you a second to think about it, I will say that there was one time where I noticed, and this is where you could kind of tell in the game that it felt like they were pressing a little bit. And I'm not trying to say this is the wrong decision by any stretch, but it's just an observation, is that there was a 4th and 1 with 10 minutes left in the third quarter. And not that Bemidji State was like at the 35 of Winona or something like that. I think it was towards midfield, maybe a little bit behind there. But Bemidji State punted. And it just feels like in years past, they would go for it and they'd be ready and they go. And it feels like, again, they're trying to work some things out. They know that it's a work in progress. And they kind of were like, you know what, let's not put the offense in a tough spot here. Let's do that. And it felt like in years past, they go for it, which kind of just shows you how the game, it kind of just felt like the game was slipping a little bit. And they were trying to punt it away, make their offense earn it, all the things like that. But again, this is a work in progress. This is a Bemidji State football team that will get better as the season goes along. We just kind of have to sit tight and let them work through what they're going to work through. Because if Carver is your guy, you let him work through it. And then you got junior and senior year where he is veteran and seasoned and ready to roll. He's got to get that experience somehow.
Yeah, exactly. This season at this point, like, again, we're not saying that we're dead in the water because there are still enough quality opponents on this schedule where you can make the playoffs. It's still not out of the realm of possibility.
Cutoff.
Yeah, exactly. Like anything more than that, and I think it's probably impossible. But we'll see. Again, take it 1 week at a time. But yeah, I was a little bit shocked to see the lack of aggression in certain situations by Coach Bolte, but you just never know. Like, we're not on the sideline. We don't have the insider information on why, but it was a little surprising just based off the history and what we know he likes to do from a coaching perspective. But yeah, overall, I just think that this is going to take some time. You know, this is probably the heaviest amount of turnover that this team has had offensively and defensively. I mean, we talked about how much they lost in the trenches, man. I mean, they lost all Americans, you know, on both sides of the ball. And that is
defensive player of the year.
Exactly. And sometimes that is harder to make up than maybe we made it seem before the season started. As good as they've been over the last 5 years of cycling in and getting new players in there, sometimes you're just not going to have it at the start of the season. I do think they'll get better as the season goes along, especially as they gel more as an offense, because I think the defense has done pretty well. Obviously, things kind of spiraled out of control last week against Michigan Tech, but I do think that there's reason to be excited still about this season, but this season's got to start turning into a little bit of, hey, even if it's a gap year, even if we go, you know, God forbid, like 6-5 or 7-4 or something like that, this has got to be a transitional year, and we got to still work on setting ourselves up as best as we can for the future, and so that we can have more success. And this wasn't just a 4-year blip where all of a sudden BSU turned into powerhouse and then fell off. So
right, exactly. And like you said, it's a new offensive system with Coach Hine, and you see in the NFL, you hear NFL players talk about like, hey, a new offensive system takes time to learn. And those guys are professionals, and this is just the college football setting and things like that. It's just going to take a little bit of time. It doesn't mean that it's going to be bad. It doesn't mean that, whatever. Because even though Coach Hine was on staff before, I mean, he told us like his offense has a few different wrinkles. There's a few different things he wants to do. And it's, there's just, every person's going to have kind of, it's a process, I think, is the biggest thing. And like you said, defensively, there's just you just lost a lot of dogs, like, for lack of a better term. There's a lot of good defenders. And again, not that the ones that they have now are bad or anything. It's just that you lost some really talented ones. And there's a reason why they're really talented is because you don't get players like that very often. So it's going to take some time to figure things out and gel and do all the things they need to do. You just have to be patient and be able to try and figure things out along the way. So looking at their opponent up ahead, Ian, they take on University of Sioux Falls. They're receiving votes. They've kind of had their start to the season for football. They've gotten off to the start that they want to. They got a 42-28 home opener win over Northern to be able to go 2-0 on the year. So they are in a good spot. They feel like they're gelling. What do we know? What do we want to see kind of in this next matchup for Bemidji State football?
Well, I'm looking for a little bit more consistency, a little bit more, like you talked about. You have to have a balance between the offense and the defense. Like the defense has played really well at times this year, but the offense will struggle. And then when the defense, I guess the defense has played pretty well outside of the second half, maybe of the. You look at the offensive numbers for Sioux Falls, they average 235 pass yards a game so far through 2 games, and their rushing offense is almost at 200 yards per game, above Bemidji State, sitting at 5th in the conference. Bemidji State at 183 yards per game. So Sioux Falls offense has been humming so far this year. It's going to be another test for the defense for the Beavers. Defensively, Sioux Falls is pretty middle of the pack. If you look at the passing defense, they're 10th right now. Bemidji State is up at 5th. So a little bit better there for the Beavers. And then Bemidji State, unfortunately, in the rushing defense category, something we're not used to seeing the last couple of years. And this is, goes back to all the players we lost in the trenches over this last season. But Bemidji State allowing 156 yards per game on the ground right now. Sioux Falls allowing 80 yards per game on the ground so far this season. So it's going to be a test. Of course, we don't have a lot of data to go off of. There's only been 2 games. It's definitely no reason to be super alarmed in all these statistical categories so far. Bemidji State's 2 pretty good teams to start their season. So, you just look at this Sioux Falls offense, and it's going to be a lot of stop the run and then just try not to get gashed in the passing game. It really was just a couple of big plays that really hurt the Beavers. I think it was Waters, their wide receiver, if I'm remembering his last name correctly, that had a couple of huge plays in that game that really turned the tide for Minnesota State in that regular season matchup. And that's something you're going to want to limit, is big explosive plays, because this defense, for the most part, I know we just talked about Winona State having a couple of long drives, but they can get off the field if you give them opportunities to. And so those limiting big plays is going to be a huge factor, I think, in this.
Yeah, and like you said, the running game is going to be huge. The time of possession has been important as well. Bemidji State, when you look at their time of possession per game, 28:09 is how much time their offense has had the football averaged out through the first couple games of the season. Again, small sample size, but this is what we have to go off of. Number 1 in the conference is Sioux Falls. They average having the ball 38 minutes and 48 seconds in their first 2 games, which is almost 2/3 of the game.
It's a long time.
3/4 of the game. 2/3, 3/4, doesn't matter.
2/3,
it's 2/3, yeah. Fractions are hard. So this is stopping the run is going to be priority number 1 for this team, not only to just try and get stops, but also to prevent your defense from being out on the field, from getting gashed and things like that. And it's going to be on the other side as well. Bemidji State's going to need to find a way to sustain those long drives like they did at the beginning of the Winona State game. They're going to need to find a way to do it more consistently just to be able to keep their defense off the field. I mean, when your offense doesn't have the ball, it's when your defense is out on the field a lot. And it felt like the more the game went on against Winona State, you just felt the Bemidji State defense started to wear down because they were on the field a lot. So again, I'm not saying you got to win time of possession, because that's going to be hard against a team like Sioux Falls. But can you get it as even as you can? Can you prevent them from basically hanging on to the ball for 40 minutes of the 60-minute game clock? Because if that happens, you're going to lose. Like, you'll just lose 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100. Like, that's just not going to be good for you. Can you find a way to try and keep the time of possession as even as you can if you can't win it, and see what you can do from there? This is going to be a running attack you're going to have to try and stop. The other thing for Bemidji State, penalties. If you look at they are 4th right now in the conference with 11 penalties called against them. throughout the season. And we look at the yardage, that's given 56.5 yards averaged out through the first couple of games of the season. So time of possession, trying to just clean up penalties a little bit. If Bemidji State can do that, they're going to be in a really good shot to win this football game.
Yeah, I agree. Penalties are always a huge factor in the game. If you can, keep yourselves clean, you're going to give yourself an advantage. It's a really underrated part of the game. Like, some people just think that penalties are going to happen, but honestly, a holding penalty at some points is just as bad as a sack. Obviously, when your offense is struggling, that's something that can just compile and compound on that. So, yeah, it's going to be a huge thing to stay clean and play one of your best games. Because like she just said, if you let Sioux Falls control the tempo of this game and keep the ball, it's going to be rough for your defense. They're going to be out there, they're going to be gassed against a rushing attack like this one. So I'm looking for the offense to run the ball and try to control the clock as well as they can. That's been their most successful thing offensively so far this season. Use Connor Carver, use Jaden Washington, use Tisdale, all the guys you got back there. It's going to be a gang effort. But I think that's going to be probably what they try to lean towards, is exploiting Sioux Falls' top-ranked rushing defense so far through 2 games.
All right, predictions, and then we'll wrap it up here, and we'll talk volleyball and women's soccer and cross-country and all that other stuff. First, predictions, Ian. Despite everything that feels like the sky's falling for the football program from the outside, I still think Bemidji State does find a way to win this football game. I think it's going to be some pretty low scoring. I say Bemidji State wins this one 14-10.
Oh, that is low scoring. I was going to go low scoring as well. I do think that there's going to be some Cheddar Dome magic in the air. I think the Beavers win this one 21-20. After going for 2 late in the game to take the win.
All right, I like it. Beavers win. There you have it here. And again, just a good win. It'd be just a good win to get things back on track. Let everybody take a breath and figure it out. If you start 0-3 and Augustana's coming to town, again, season's not over. But it's just now you're getting to the point where it's like, okay, we gotta get this train on the tracks at some point. So yeah. But for now, we'll have that conversation if that comes, and we don't think it will. So, all right. Before we get into talking about women's soccer, and they got their first win of the year, we're going to talk a little bit about volleyball and cross country and men's and women's golf and all that other stuff. But first, we need to talk about the great folks at the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. Once a Beaver, always a Beaver. The Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation is here to keep that green and white pride going strong for its 50,000 graduates around the world. From scholarships that open doors for students to events that bring BSU alumni and friends together, you can get connected, give back, and leave a legacy at Bemidji State. Whether you're a proud BSU grad or a local supporter, or just love cheering on the Beavers, come be a part of the action at bsualumni.org. That's bsualumni.org. bsualumni.org. That's bsualumni.org. Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation, proud sponsors of the Beaver Banter podcast. Homecoming is not too far away, Ian, and I know they got some fun stuff planned as well. So there's a whole lot of things that the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation does that is just really, really cool. And we're so glad to have them on board for the Beaver Banter podcast. All right, Ian, Bemidji State women's soccer, they start the year 0-1. They do end up getting a win on their Missouri road trip to go to 1-1 on the year. But first, let's talk about that opening game of the season, who they play, how to go.
Yeah, they played a game against Missouri Western, a team they've seen a couple times before, and it didn't go the way of the Beavers, unfortunately. A couple goals for I believe it's the Griffins in this game. It was a 2-0 loss for the Beavers in this one. They were outshot 15-3 in this game. Missouri Western really just controlled the pace of play the entire time. 9 shots on target for the Griffins compared to 1 for the Beavers. So that is unfortunate. I'm trying to see how many saves this goaltender made. Obviously, I can just do that based off of this. Goalkeeping, Peyton Kropp played into that, made 7 saves in her 90 minutes for the Beavers. And then you tab over to Sunday. It was a game against Northwest Missouri State, a team we've played twice before. We're 2-0 against them, and we keep the winning streak alive. with a 1-0 win. Katrina Barthelt scoring just a minute and 44 seconds into the game. Who else but Katrina Barthelt? And the Beavers were able to hold that 1-0 lead for the rest of the game. They won the shots in this game 9-6 with a 6-5 advantage in the shots on target category. So pretty good weekend for the Beavers. I know I had talked about how it would be really good to get 4 points or get a draw maybe against Northwest Missouri State, but you know what? Splitting on the weekend, non-conference against an opponent that is receiving votes, I'll take it. You come back home to Minnesota at least and play a road game this coming Friday against Minnesota Duluth. It is not a conference opponent. We play Minnesota Duluth twice this year, once out of conference, and then all the way back in November, the last game of the regular season will be against Duluth as well. But yeah, like we talked about last week, just 3 out of conference games. It's always a short schedule for the women's soccer team out of conference, but starting off 1-1, not too bad. I'll take it. Let's go beat Duluth this next weekend and then get ready for NSIC play.
Right. The non-conference schedule are great tune-up games, but they don't necessarily have a huge bearing on if your team is going to make the NCAA tournament or not. That's going to depend on how you do in the conference schedule and almost as importantly, the conference tournament. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind there for Bemidji State women's soccer. But like you said, Bartheld getting things going right away. Not only is she the reigning Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference scoring champion, she's also preseason Offensive Player of the Year. A lot of coaches know how good she can be. Ian, she scored that goal a minute 44 into the match.
Yeah.
Just right off the bat, putting that thing in and getting your team up 1-0. And that's something that she can do in her senior season is just make these plays, get things going right away. And it's so huge for this women's soccer team when they can score early, not only just because you want to score and you want to do it early and often and all that, but Bemidji State historically in women's soccer has played a grindy to dust. We want to win games 1-0, 2-1. Like that is just how they play. And when you get up 1-0 like that, you pretty much can just play keep away almost the entire match.
Yeah, it makes it really easy to play their style of soccer. It's very similar to the way that Sarah Torres teams have been coached over the last number of years. Where if they always say if the Beavers get a lead on you, it's really hard to come back and take it from them because of the way that they play, and that can be said about this soccer team too. So good to see them get a win in non-conference in that way, a way that we're so familiar with. Like CJ said, just a 1-0 victory, but a win is a win. It counts all the same in the win-loss category.
Well, and not just that they won 1-0 as well. The offense did look good in the sense that they outshot the Bearcats in the first half 7-2, and then of course won the shot differential overall. So even though it's not always going in the net, and Ian, you're a much more elite soccer mind than I am, even though it's not going in the net, it at least means that their offense is getting opportunities. They were close. And the other team wasn't really close to getting anything in the net either. So it's just kind of that the score bears out what the game was like.
Yeah, absolutely. 6 shots on target. That's always good. You can get shots all you want, but I've talked about this plenty when we talk about men's hockey in the past. Is a shot attempt is only as good as a shot attempt. Like it sometimes when you just throw it right in the breadbasket of the goaltender, it's not very effective. But if you don't get it on target, it can't go in the net. Of course, soccer and hockey are different in that aspect, where if it doesn't hit the frame of the goal, or if the goalie doesn't make a save on it, it doesn't count as a shot. Whereas it still counts as a shot, and then it doesn't count as a shot on target if it doesn't, get it saved. So it is a little different in that aspect, but yeah, still, like you said, it's good to see that they were controlling the pace of play and were able to outshoot Northwest Missouri State.
So like we said, Bemidji State is going to play Duluth in that non-conference conference game over in Duluth. And it's just important to get this matchup off on the right foot. It's more, even though it's not conference play, it basically is, right? Because you're going to see this team later. The only thing it's not going to matter in is the conference standings, but it's still going to be an important one to try and look at. And when you look all time, Bemidji State is 10-16-5 against the UMD Bulldogs. And in fact, they've had a 6-game winning streak against UMD dating from 2018 to 2024, a 6-game stretch, which is the longest in program history. And it really has kind of turned the tide. But when they do play in Duluth, they're 5-13-2. So all of this to say, Bemidji State has had UMD's number lately. It's a little tougher when you go up and play in the hills over there. But it feels like Bemidji State's really turned the tide in this rivalry in the last few years.
Yeah, haven't lost a game to Duluth since Halloween night of 2014 in soccer, and that was in Duluth, Minnesota. 0-2 loss for the Beavers. But yeah, that 6-game winning streak, and then there's 2 ties in between in the middle there in 2016 and 2017, followed by an overtime win in 2015. That's interesting. These must be, they're either all tournament games. They are in the late season. This one was in November 1st, October 30th, and October 28th. I know the season nowadays doesn't really wrap up until early mid-November, but I mean, normally they don't play in overtime games unless it is in a tournament setting. So that's interesting.
Interesting. What also is interesting is the last time Bemidji State lost to UMD in women's soccer, we probably talked about it on R&B Sports Talk, and that's about the winning streak started. One of the falls we were on campus doing radio in 2018, and they just haven't lost since. So are we responsible partially? I'm not going to say no.
Well, you've dug us a big hole if next Friday doesn't go well, but yeah.
On the podcast, guys, I'm sorry. Pressure's on.
Yeah, exactly. But
so yeah,
should be good.
Exactly. Lean on Bartel. Like, she's your offense. She's your team. Get her going early and see what you can do. Get a win, and we'll hopefully talk about a good win next week and roll from there because that's their only game next week. And then all of a sudden you get into game on Friday, game on Sunday, you get into the full swing of the season in this final week of non-conference play. You just have one game, go win it, and go into the actual NSIC play feeling really good. So let's talk a little volleyball, Ian, because the volleyball team went to the Eckerd Classic in St. Petersburg, Florida. They did not win a match down there. They were able to come away with a couple 5-setters, 1 4-setter, and 1 they lost in straight sets. That was to Eckerd College, but still quite unable to get the first victory in the Coach Butte era for Bemidji State volleyball. They'll have a chance with the Hampton Inn Invitational, which is taking place in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They're going to play Roosevelt, Missouri S&T, McKendree, and Parkside this coming weekend, this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then they are going to play conference play on Friday the 19th. And then we are off to kind of the big NSIC schedule here. But I think overall, if we look at Bemidji State's efforts so far, they've had a couple games where they're close. A couple times you take it to 5 sets. That's always seen as like, hey, you're right with them. You're there. And when you're in a 5th set, everybody knows in volleyball, it's just kind of a race to 15. It's a race to get that. If you start slow at all in that final set, you're pretty much cooked. So, things to look at. They were competitive in that tournament, and that's a great sign, even if they didn't get the wins.
Yeah, the 2 games, of course, that were the closest were against Ohio Dominican to start off the tournament or the, invitational. Bemidji State actually led 2-0 and then were reverse swept by Ohio Dominican to end that one. And then the game against the Puerto Rico Mayaguez, they almost reverse swept Puerto Rico, but they ended up falling short in the last set, 16-14.
And they went into extra points, 16.
Yes, exactly. So that one was
that was a coin
very close, very close. But yeah, unfortunate that they still haven't been able to pick up that first win, but they have 4 more chances to do it again this weekend. Again, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, all in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So
yeah, a lot of things. If you look at that matchup against Mayaguez, by the way, Bemidji State actually outkilled PR in that one, 66-57, although Bemidji State had 2 more errors, and that kind of ended up being the thing that lost them there. Overall, it's going to be just interesting to see how the things kind of roll out here so far. Lily Rice has kind of been the player that's really led the team in their offensive attack so far. In the game against PR Mayaguez, she had 23 kills. in the game against Eckerd. She had 14 kills. Looking at the other box score from the first 2 games of the season against Maryville and against Ohio Dominican, when you look at some of the box scores and some of that stuff, in the game against Ohio Dominican, Ava Athman had 8 kills, and so did Nevaeh Carlson, kind of leading the way in the offense. Lily Reese had 7 kills along with Carly Dunham. And then in game 2, that's when Ava Atham again had 12 kills. Lily Reese had 12 as well. Carly Dunham had 7 kills, an ace and a block, and Ella Cratchville had 4 kills as well. So those are kind of some names to watch kind of for BSU's offensive attack in these first 4 sets of the first 4 matches of the year. We'll see how that develops as things go on. So let's take a look in at a couple other sports as we wrap up this week's Beaver Banter podcast. Men's and women's golf is taking place right now, and the tournaments right now, I don't believe we have finals as of recording this podcast, correct?
No, we do not have any results for Tuesday. Monday, the men got first of 8 teams at the Bemidji State Invitational, so hopefully they can hold on to that lead. And the women, unfortunately, were 9th out of 9 teams at the Tracy Lane Memorial Tournament to roll into today's action. So we'll have to keep you guys posted, maybe on the Twitter, maybe on the socials, to see what happens if the results get posted later today for any of these. But yeah, so far so good for the men's, and unfortunately the women sitting in last place as of right now, as of yesterday, I suppose. So we'll see if they can make up any ground.
All right, and taking a look in cross country, Bemidji State competed at the Augie Twilight to get the year going. And if you ever notice why early season races are called the Twilight, it's because they run the races like at sundown, because it's typically warm when you're running in the Dakotas in early September, late August. So they decide to run when the sun's going down to let the runners at least race in a little bit cooler conditions. Bemidji State got 14th out of 26th at the Augie Twilight. And not only that, all 7 runners set personal bests in the 5K race. So seniors Maggie McCarthy and Nadia Vaughn led the team with 60th and 86th place finishes. McCarthy had a personal best of 19:02.4, taking 5th in the Bemidji State record books. Vaughn also etched her name 8th all-time with a 19:22.9, rounding out the Beavers' top 100 appearances. Sophie Rylance finished 93rd with a personal best of 19:29. In the first collegiate race for Jaslyn Hanneberger, she made the top 150 at 126th with a time of 19:59. Ava Werner had 20:33, and Aspen Road and Sydney Price had, looking at the times here, 21:05.1, while 21:05.5 for Price. So Road and Price were like 0.4 seconds apart.
Neck and neck.
Insane. But also the thing about, everybody set career best, and that's great, and that's awesome, and I am not taking anything away from that performance. The thing that does help everybody set personal bests is that you're running in, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it's a little more flat, and you can just there's not a lot of hills that are going to add to the resistance. Nothing against them. Those are all great times. But if you ever notice, you typically are going to run your best race of the season when you run it in a lot of flat conditions, when you're running those Dakota races. So if somebody doesn't hit their PR the rest of the season, it's not because they've regressed. It's not because they've gotten worse. Usually the running conditions have a lot to do with cross country.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for somebody that doesn't have a lot of cross country experience. That the conditions of
what are you talking about? You didn't experiment by running a 5K?
Yeah. I just figured I would go do that quick and just.
I did it once and then I decided I'd never do it again.
Yeah, no, it's running isn't for me. I don't do much of that.
No, exactly. We'll leave it to them. They're the professionals. They're the ones who.
Yes.
They're the ones who can go do that. They're going to take the week off from racing. They're going to run on Friday, September 19th at the University of Minnesota for the GRIAC Invitational, which is fun. There's it's a high school race along with the collegiate race and things like that. So it's a really fun run that Bemidji State gets to compete at down at the Gophers place at Lee Bolstead Golf Course. And I believe the last time they're going to hold this, at least at the golf course on the University of Minnesota campus, as we mentioned last week, the university selling that golf course, which has been the site of the Minnesota State High School League state cross country race for the last couple of years. So for those runners, it's probably going to move back to St. Olaf or something like that. So anyway, that's it. That's the Beaver Banter podcast. Ian, anything in Bemidji State you want to get out there for the weekend?
No, I think we're good. Got some events coming back to campus very soon. This will be the first on-campus sporting event. Besides, I guess, golf isn't on campus, but I guess it is technically in Bemidji this week. But the football game this weekend will be the first on-campus sporting event, and then soccer and volleyball will return home very soon as well. So getting excited for all the home events to starting this weekend with a hopeful football victory over Sioux Falls.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a hopeful victory. And go out to the Chet. It's going to be a new look this year. Go out there, enjoy Diamond Point Park, enjoy all the tailgating festivities, and enjoy the game. It's going to be a real fun one. So go out there, have fun, enjoy the home opener, and let's get a win, Beavers. Let's go. I'm CJ Baumgartner. That's Ian Rivers. This has been the Beaver Banter podcast. By the way, go join the Discord. There's all the information on all of our socials on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and things like that. You'll get the information. Beaver Banter Discord is the place to go to talk Bemidji State sports.